Hello, Chelsofians. I quite like Chelsofians. It's preferable to Chelsophists because, of course, sophists, aren't as cool as philosophers, at least according to Socrates. So, Chelsophists, Chelsophinizers, Chelsophi. Yeah, I'm happy with Chelsophists, right? And so anyway, I thought I'd do a little talk on my thoughts concerning Chris Fields, right? So interviewed Chris Fields a while ago. I probably ought to sort of recondition or repackage some of my older interviews and talks and so on, because it's sort of almost excruciatingly kind of amateurish, looking back on the production and so on. I'm getting better, I hope. But anyway, this is about Chris Fields. And I just want to start out by saying that I just think he's one of the most fantastic human beings on the planet. Right? I love him. He was just so cool to talk to. He was respectful. He was patient. He could probably sense that I didn't have the sort of depth of grasp on the material that would have been helpful. But I've worked through some of his material. I've spoken to a couple of his collaborators, Levin and Friston and so on, and these guys are just unbelievable what they're offering up, right? Friston's offering up this sort of explanatory, logic of dynamics, really, or logic of identity or thingness or processness, and Chris Fields has developed that into a kind of quantum theoretic version. Which assumes nothing about the position that entities find themselves in, right? It assumes nothing about some kind of external grid or matrix or manifold. It doesn't assume anything, right? So it just says, look, that there is essentially just a boundary between distinct agencies that transfers information. That's it. So, his outlook seems to be about sort of communication, really, and it assumes nothing. And that's the thing that I find the most fascinating. The other thing about Chris is that he seems to have answers for just about everything. I mean, I gave him some really, really interesting questions. I asked him what a mind was, I asked him what mathematics was, and he seems to be actively engaged in the philosophy as he's doing it. I know he quotes some previous thinkers and so on and so forth, inevitably, giants, shoulders, and so on. But he is a sage, right? Because he's not trapped or contaminated by a particular sort of narrow slice of science or a narrow worldview. He's literally transcending the boundaries, the disciplinary boundaries, and offering up logic and excuse me, I must be hungry, and models which seem to have extreme explanatory power without assuming anything, in terms of without any sort of metaphysical assumptions. Literally just describing a refined sort of position without any kind of metaphysical assumptions. And I just don't know what to say about that. Isn't that what we've been looking for? Isn't that what philosophy has been looking for? A kind of language that transcends sort of metaphysics, or connect metaphysics with science. And I think these people are kind of knocking at that door right here. So, the stuff he was saying about mathematics was just so profound. This idea that babies develop. We're not born into the world. We create the world, right, from babyhood, and we create the world by moving, right, and touching and sensing and developing a kind of an internal representation of these bunch of sensations, which you might say is information crossing the Markovian boundary, right? Again, and sort of abstracting from the assumptions of any metaphysical system, not just materialism, but just saying, well, we don't know what's here foundationally, but we can describe its proclivities or its dynamics. Right? So I think he's, at the frontier. He's an independent researcher. He's not associated with any particular establishment. His work doesn't depend on sort of political reputation. He's kind of done a Spinoza in a way. He's sort of, I don't know why he's an independent researcher, and I'm sure there's some stories to hear and to tell, but and share. But he doesn't seem interested in reputation, power or influence or anything like that. He seems perfectly happy to just keep churning out extremely challenging and interesting material. Like I said, I think I worked out that he's doing sort of something like three papers every couple of months or something ridiculous like that. And he's phenomenal, and collaborates with some of the leading thinkers in different areas: philosophy, biology, neuroscience. And as he keeps on saying, that it's it's time we possibly started abandoning these artificial boundaries between different disciplines. Everything used to be philosophy, right? And obviously there was a kind of practical advantage in delimiting the various disciplines, but I think that the time has come to sort of reunite them. Anyway, that's the world, according to me, when it comes to Chris Fields, and I'd love to speak to him again at some point. He's no doubt producing some more extravagantly brilliant work, and I should no doubt pay more attention to the detail of it and read the papers and so on and so forth, and be better prepared for any future conversations with the guy, because I would love to have him back. So there we are. They're my initial thoughts on Chris Fields. I'll confess I've had one or two glasses of wine this evening, so this might not be my most tip-top sort of incisive talk, but let's face it, incision isn't exactly my middle name, or incisiveness. So there we are. Cheers, guys. See you soon. Bye.